Climate protesters will gather and are gathering at the Prime Minister's Sydney residence this morning, claiming Scott Morrison is missing in action at a time when the country needs leadership on bushfires and smoke haze. Joining me live now is Greens Senator Sarah Hanson-Young. Sarah, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. So why isn't the Prime Minister allowed to take a holiday?
Good morning, Peter. Well, look, we know that we're facing a national crisis right now. We've got bushfires raging on both sides of the country. Here in Sydney this morning, you can already smell the smoke in the air as we reach record-breaking temperatures across southeastern Australia. My home state in South Australia is on a code red. It's going to be 44 degrees in Adelaide today, 48 and 49 in some of our rural and regional areas. And the Prime Minister is missing in action. Look, and I don't at all suggest that people shouldn't take a holiday, but when you're facing a national crisis, our emergency services officers are working around the clock. You've got health professionals struggling to deal with the health implications of extreme heat, and the Prime Minister's off on holidays, and he was sneaky about it. He wasn't even willing to be up front with people before he left. Well, so it's not a good look.
Sorry to interrupt you, Senator, but I've raised the point that we are standing by at the moment to go to a press conference that features the Premier of New South Wales and various RFS chiefs to talk about the day ahead. So what could the Prime Minister do that they can't and are not already doing?
Well, we're now into week 5 or 6 of this bushfire crisis, cities being smothered in smoke, people dealing with the health implications of that, firefighters and emergency services officers exhausted from having to be out there on the front line. And the Prime Minister has seemingly done nothing in relation to this crisis thus far, and now he's gone off on holidays. I think, Peter, it is absolute time now to declare this a national emergency, to have the Prime Minister convene the state premiers from across the country and to come up with a proper strategy, a strategy of how we're going to get through the summer, how we're going to make sure our emergency services officers across the state have the resources, the training, the support they need, and of course a strategy that goes towards reducing the pollution that is making this worse. We need a climate strategy and we need the Prime Minister to lead it. And where is he? Well, we don't bloody well know.
Well, you've made a lot of noise about that, but at the moment the Prime Minister's party isn't concerned about it. They think the holiday is deserved. Anthony Albanese even said yesterday that he's not concerned about it. RFS chiefs aren't concerned about it. So why should anybody else be concerned about that at the moment if he's going to take 5 days of rest?
The community are concerned about it because this is a Prime Minister that's been missing in action for weeks, and now we find out that he's on holidays and his office won't even tell people where he's been or that he was going. A few days ago we weren't even told who the acting Prime Minister was. Who's running the show here? Who's running the country? Because it's certainly not Scott Morrison. You know, this is the job of a Prime Minister. When there is a national emergency, when there are people volunteering their time around the clock to save people's homes, to save their lives, for doctors and health professionals to have to be dealing with the inundation of heat-related emergencies as the mercury soars today, the Prime Minister should be on the ground showing leadership. I tell you what, Peter, Prime Minister Howard would never have acted like this, and I don't think the other Prime Ministers would have either. Scott Morrison has been MIA for weeks now, and it's just not good enough. The Australian people are worried about it. I mean, I don't care. I don't really care if the Liberal Party aren't concerned. It just shows they don't have an ear to the ground about what the community feels. People are angry and they have every right to be.
Senator, there's a front page story in the Sydney Morning Herald today that talks about China's increasing its demand when it comes to coal-fired power plants. So, you know, as we know, its emissions count for, you know, more than 30% of world numbers as opposed to us being just at 1%. So wouldn't you be better off protesting out the front of the Chinese consulate this morning?
Well, we know that Australia's got to play a big role in not just reducing emissions that we produce or that we inadvertently produce because we ship the world's largest amount of coal exports, which of course goes overseas, gets burnt, creates more pollution, makes climate change worse. But of course, we should be able to be in a negotiating position and discussions with countries like China to say, how can we help you reduce your carbon pollution as well? But the problem is, Australia can't do that while we've got a Prime Minister who won't deal with climate change and seemingly an energy minister who doesn't really care. He just came back from a international meeting in Madrid after arguing that Australia should have been able to increase our carbon pollution. Australia should be doing more to work with countries like China, like India, like others in our region to reduce carbon pollution. Very hard to do while we're running around trying to fiddle the books.
Well, why not protest out the front of the consulate then? Isn't your protest at the moment misplaced? You're in the wrong location.
We're out the front of the Prime Minister's house and he's not here. He's the Prime Minister of the country. He should be showing leadership and he's not. He's MIA. He's been MIA on climate strategy for months now. He's been MIA in dealing with this crisis as a national emergency and now we don't even know where the hell he is. He's just missing. You know, his office says he's off on a holiday. Okay, good. Maybe when he gets back, he could put all of his focus on getting something done, because that's what the Australian people want.
All right, Green Senator Sarah Hanson-Young live for us this morning in Sydney. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Peter.